What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. And today we have a first. I don't know how it's possible. We have 1,400 videos up at the time of this film. We don't have any Rod Stewart up, but we're about to remedy that. We got Rod Stewart and his iconic album, Every Picture Tells a Story, brought to us by our friend, longtime patron and supporter of the channel, Rich. Thank you, Rich. Always appreciate you. Look, I like me some Rod Stewart. Saw him in concert in the 90s. I've listened to this album one time a couple years ago, so it really is like a first listen for me. Obviously, one of the songs is iconic. Really, two of them almost. But yeah, looking forward to diving into it. Let's get into the quick facts for a second here. Third studio album released in May of 1971. I was just born a few short months later. Number one in the US and the UK. Huge critical success, both then and retrospectively. The album's a mixture of rock, country, blues, soul, and folk. All five members of the Faces, with whom, of course, Rod was the lead vocalist at the time, appeared on the album, with guitarist and bassist known then as Ron Wood, later to become Ronnie Wood of the Stones, but didn't go to the Stones until 1975, and also keyboardist Ian McLaughlin on Hammond B3 organ being employed the most. Pete Sears played all the piano on the album except for one track, I'm Losing You, which had Ian on piano, along with the Faces as an entire band were on that one. So, not a lot of quick facts because there's a lot of facts inside of the songs. And as you see, we start this off with the title track, almost a 6-minute epic, written by Rod and Ronnie Wood, of course. Music critic Grell Marcus regards this as Rod Stewart's greatest performance, which is quite a statement. The lyrics from a first-person narrative of the singer finding adventures with women all over the world, but eventually returning home after having learned some moral lessons. Locations of his adventures include Paris, Rome, and Peking. Some questionable lyrics on here, you will hear them, but a live version of the song performed by Rod in the early 90s, he had removed those verses. And the song's lyrics are entirely freeform in that they do not follow any consistent rhythmic meter and read almost like prose. Rhyming only appears occasionally and randomly, some within individual lines as opposed to between them. Rod's confident performance, however, renders these shortcomings of rhyme and rhythm unnoticeable to the listener, shows you his skill set even at that point. The song sounds like it does have lyrical rhyme and rhythm. Despite being a hard rock song, it primarily uses acoustic instruments, although Ron, I'll just call him Ron here because that's who he was, Ron Wood, does use an electric guitar occasionally. You got Pete Sears on the acoustic piano. And according to Rod, this is funny, man, this is how we did it back in the day. He found the mandolin and violin players for this song and Maggie May in a restaurant in London. He just went in and said, hey, Maggie Bell and Long John Baldry provide the harmony vocals. Once again, Rich, appreciate you. I'll have the lyrics up. Let's get into it. Every Picture Tells a Story. A very interesting song has so many facets, right? First, instrumentally, very, very interesting because you had the great drumming by Mickey Waller in your, I think it was the right channel, and then the acoustic in the left, which was being played, the 12-string by Ron Wood, who also did bass and electric. Ronnie was all hands on deck. But so the instrumentation was interesting. The title of the song never comes in until the outro. The backing vocals at the end of verse 4, you've got Maggie Bell coming in, and then the last verse, Maggie Bell and Long John Baldry both come in verse 5. So it's a long song with 5 verses. It doesn't seem like it, though, and he's just kind of going over his life, right? At first, he's still living, at home or in his hometown. Spent some time feeling inferior, standing in front of my mirror. No matter how he combed his hair, he still was going to look the same. Daddy said, son, you better see the world. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to leave. But remember one thing, don't lose your head to a woman that'll spend your bread. So it's Dad's warning, don't be getting caught up with the wrong kind of women. So then he goes to Paris in verse 2. He goes to Rome in verse 3. Then he goes to Peking in verse 4. And that's where it's got some stuff in there that wouldn't fly nowadays. Verse 5, he kind of repeats the line that really wouldn't fly. But he's saying, he found the women that he needed over there, not in his hometown. And so, and then this, after every picture tells a story. A really, really well done song. Like I said, really interesting just in the soundscape of it. You can notice, now that you know going in, the rhythm and the things that Rod fixes. I think it makes the song just that much better. I'll go to the second track. You see it below. Seems like a long time. Really, the only song I didn't have anything on, Mandolin Bell, not Maggie Bell, but Mandolin Bell sings backing vocals on this one. Seems like a long time. A nice song. It's not a very long song lyrically, just kind of has you singing along to it. Some little opposites in here in the first line of the verses. Nighttime is only the other side of daytime. But if you've ever waited for the sun, you know what it's like to wish daytime would come. So that's kind of the motif that he takes. And then the chorus, and don't it seem like a long time, seem like a long time, seem like a long, long time. Hard times are only the other side of good times. You know, if you wish for hard times to leave, it seems like a long time. Nice instrumental break there. Ron's playing a nice little electric, and they're not overdoing it. And, you know, the chorus comes in for quite a while and don't seem like a long time, seem like a long time, seem like a long, long time. They keep repeating it, and it just gets you singing along to it. An anthemic, almost gospel choir type of sound to it. And then the third verse, they mix Rod's voice a little more to the front. You really feel like how good his voice is towards the end of this song. Wartime is in the other side of peacetime and goes through that. So really did enjoy that one. I thought it showcased, you know, it's a simple song, but, you know, Piano by Pete is nice there and kind of showcased Rod's voice there towards the end. Now we get to the third track, and there's some interesting things about this album on Spotify. The original album track listing had 10 songs. Spotify only has 8 because this song is That's Alright, and that's how it's listed, but it also has a little bit of Amazing Grace in here. They were originally separated on the original album, and then I'll get to what the other song that isn't on here was. But so this is going to be That's Alright, and in my notes, / Amazing Grace. That's Alright is actually That's Alright Mama, written and originally performed by blues singer Arthur Crudup. But it's best known as the debut single of Elvis Presley back in 1954. Rolling Stone magazine back in 2004 even went as far as saying Presley's recording was the first rock and roll record. Now, there's a lot of argument on that. We won't get into all of that. And then we get into Amazing Grace, Christian hymn published in 1779 with words written by English poet and Anglican clergyman John Newton. So a lot of stuff there. One of the most known hymns all around the world. People who are Christian like me and people who aren't Christian still identify with Amazing Grace and just the power of it. It's estimated it's sung over 10 million times a year. So basically just telling you that forgiveness and redemption are possible regardless of your sins, and the soul can be delivered from despair because of the mercy of God sending his son Jesus Christ. That's basically what Amazing Grace is about. So interesting that these things are put together. As far as the Amazing Grace, Aretha Franklin also did a version of it around the same time that she released. That was pretty popular. And Johnny Cash a few years later in 1975 did it. But tons of people have released Amazing Grace. But we're combining Elvis and Amazing Grace into this one song. And I mean, I'm here for it. Let's go. That's Alright, as you see below in the Spotify bar. But it's really That's Alright / Amazing Grace. A unique, interesting choice. Not bad, just interesting. You know, first we get That's Alright Mama, really is what it is, from what Elvis made famous. And it sounds like a 50s, early 50s song, right? Just a lot of repetition, a lot of great guitar work. Nothing really much to the lyrics. That's alright, my mama. That's alright for you. That's alright, my mama. Any old way you do. And then that's the first verse. And then the chorus, but that's alright. Well, that's alright. Well, that's alright, my mama. Any way you want to do woo. So, I mean, they're basically the same thing. Songwriting was not advanced at this time. My mother, she did tell me, Papa did tell me too, son, that woman you're fooling with, she ain't no good for you, but that's all right, mama, blah, blah, blah. Instrumental break, I'm leaving here tomorrow, leaving here for sure. You ain't going to be bothered with me hanging around your door. And then just the chorus goes on forever at the end, right? And it's really a showcase for the instrumentation. You got Pete's good piano in there, and you got, you know, the slide guitar on this one is what you got. It's played by Sam Mitchell, but you got Ron Wood still on the bass and Mickey on the drums. So you got that, and then you break it off at the 4-minute mark. It's a 6-minute song, the way it's put together here on Spotify. And you really just have the acoustic of Martin Quinton and the slide of Sam Mitchell on Amazing Grace. And Rod just comes in for the last 40 seconds and sings that verse nice and slow. You really feel the power of it. So I liked it. It was just an interesting combination, although I know it's not combined on the original. Now we're going to stay on that path of covers. We got Tomorrow Is a Long Time, written and recorded by the great Bob Dylan. Dylan's version first appeared on the album Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits Volume 2 compilation, released in 1971, but it was actually an outtake from Dylan's 1963 album, The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. The officially released version of Dylan's song is a live recording from his April 1963 concert at New York's Town Hall. Tomorrow Is a Long Time, a nice violin on there by Dick Powell. Got Ron on the guitar, Pete Sears on the piano. Song basically just of love, right? Nothing else matters because he's not with her. Tomorrow's a long time. If today was not an endless highway, if tonight was not a crooked trail, if tomorrow wasn't such a long time, then lonesome will mean nothing to you at all. And the chorus, but only if my true love is waiting. Yes, and I could hear her heart softly pounding. Only if she were lying by me, would I rest in my bed. And once again, even though it's a very early Dylan, still so well written. A very early Dylan. He was a very young man when he wrote this. And let's see his reflection in the mirror. Nice little instrumental break in there. I thought Rod sounded fantastic on this. Like I said, we're going from an early Elvis song to Amazing Grace to an early Dylan song. And before we get into the next track that you see below, I'll explain to you. On the original listing, there's a song called Henry. It's an instrumental. I found it somewhere else on another album that's thrown in there. I'm assuming it's the same thing. It's only 34 seconds long. For some reason, Spotify has eliminated this, but if you have the original album and you're going, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about, Spotify messes a little bit. I don't think it's any big deal. All the music's here except for that. I mean, Amazing Grace and the Elvis song were just kind of put in there. You know, it's all right. We're put in there together. So that's there. That song is just eliminated, but it's not really a song. It's a 34-second instrumental thing. So now we're going to go on to what I think is the quintessential Rod Stewart song, Maggie May, co-written by Rod and Martin Quentin, who we just had on guitar on one of the previous songs. It expresses the ambivalence and contradictory emotions of a boy involved in a relationship with an older woman and was written from Rod's own experience. In a January 2007 Q magazine article, he said, Maggie May was more or less a true story about the first woman I had sex with at the 1961 Ballou Jazz Festival. The woman's name was not Maggie May. Stewart has stated that the name was taken from an old Liverpoolian song about a prostitute. The song was recorded in just 2 takes in one session. Mickey Waller, the drummer, often arrived at recording sessions with the expectation a drum kit would be provided. It was in this song, except there were no cymbals, so he had to overdub those later. But besides that, this thing was done in 2 takes. It was originally the B-side of a song we're going to get to in just a few, Reason to Believe, but soon radio stations flipped it over, and Maggie May was the more popular side. It was his first substantial hit as a solo performer and launched his career. Like I said, I still think it's his best or most well-known song. In October of 71, it went to number 1 in the UK and simultaneously topped the charts in Australia, Canada, and the US. What's interesting about that is this album also was number 1 at the same time. You don't have that very often. Number 1 song, number 1 album, you've definitely arrived. It was also the number 2 song of the year in the UK and the US. I mean, hits don't get much bigger than this. Rod said, at first I didn't think much of Maggie May. I guess it was because the record company didn't believe in the song. I didn't have much confidence in it. Obviously they didn't believe in it because they put it on the B-side, right? I figured it was best to listen to the guys who knew better. What I learned is sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. He also joked that if a DJ hadn't flipped the single over, he'd have gone back to his old job digging graves. I don't think that was really the case. You know, he was the lead singer of Faces and still would have had a few little hits off this, but he probably wouldn't have been who he is now. Let's check it out. Maggie May. Obviously, I've heard this song a ton of times. When you listen to it like this, an intense listen, you realize just how well produced, arranged, and constructed this song is. You know, I mentioned at the start, but you've got the guitar lead in, that's not on the single version, obviously, but it builds the anticipation for the song and it's so well done. You got Martin Quentin on acoustic and Ron Wood on 12-string, on electric, and on the bass, and then Mickey on the drums. And you got Ray Jackson on that mandolin, which has become such a huge part of this. And I've got a little story on how it gets credited to Ray Jackson in just a minute on the next track. And then you got Ian on the Hammond organ. But it's just so well done in so many different pieces, right? Because you've got that instrumental build in. Then you've got a guitar solo in the middle of it. And then towards the end, you've got what they call an instrumental interlude. That's what they call it in the official liner notes before the outro. So it just builds this epic song, right? That's almost 6 minutes long. And then the story, Rod's voice is tremendous here, really mixed to the forefront. Wake up, Maggie. I think I got something to say to you. It's late September and I really should be back at school. So when you understand it's his relationship with an older woman, and he said in an interview she's almost like a sexual predator because they'd snuck into this jazz festival that I was talking about, and they snuck over to a beer tent and she saw Rod there, and then they snuck off, and so that's kind of the whole story behind it. And chorus 1, I know I keep you amused, but I feel I'm being used. Oh, Maggie, I couldn't have tried anymore. You led me away from home just to save you from being alone. You stole my heart, and that's what really hurts. Verse 2, the morning sun, when it's in your face, really shows your age. So a little bit of a shot there from Rod, but that don't worry me none. In my eyes, you're everything. So he's saying he laughed at her jokes and did all this stuff. So each chorus is different, and I like that too. It's a very unique thing as well. And she kind of messed him over, and he says, I suppose I could collect my books and get on back to school, or steal my daddy's cue and make a living out of playing pool. And then the chorus, or find myself a rock and roll band that needs a helping hand, which he did. Oh, Maggie, I wished I'd never seen your face. You made me a first-class fool out of me, but I'm as blind as a fool can be. You stole my heart, but I love you anyway. And he had an instrumental interlude, and then he ends with, Maggie, I wish I'd never seen your face. I'll get on home back one of these days. So just one of the best songs, really, one of the most iconic songs, let me put it that way, I think, in rock and roll history. Everybody knows this song, and so well done. And difficult on one of your first albums to put this out there because it's really hard to ever measure up to it. Now we'll move on to Mandolin Wind, where I'm going to give you that mandolin story. This was actually written by Rod just by himself. Huge critical acclaim. Critics love this song, both during the time and retrospectively. It combines elements of rock music and folk, uses mostly acoustic with a particularly prominent mandolin part. Rod said that he, quote, always thought the mandolin was such a romantic sounding instrument. The identity of the mandolin player on this is unclear. The liner notes state that the mandolin was played by the mandolin player in Lindisfarne, which was a group, but that Rod Stewart had forgotten his name. Now it's funny, right? Like I guess Rod's just writing these liner notes off the top and said, we don't got somebody to like actually log who's doing this stuff, but I found that amusing. In 2003, Ray Jackson claimed to be the mandolin player on the album, at least for the song Maggie May, which I shared earlier. Jackson is a mandolin player from English folk rock band Lindisfarne. Some attribute the mandolin playing to Martin Quentin. The liner notes to Every Picture Tells a Story list Quentin only as the acoustic guitar player. So it's probably Ray Jackson, who knows? But I just found it funny that, we have a song Mandolin Wind, and we don't know who plays the mandolin officially, but let's check it out. Mandolin Wind, wow, what a great song. Some people think that Rod's writing this from the perspective that he has a terminal illness, and so they've interpreted this song that way, but from what I found, Rod's never commented on what he wrote this about, but that's how a lot of people take it. So if you look at it through that lens, I can see it, but who knows what it's about. When the rain came, I thought you'd leave because I knew how much you loved the sun, but you chose to stay and keep me warm through the darkest nights I've ever known. If the mandolin wind couldn't change a thing, then I know I love you. So, I mean, that's where you get kind of, something bad has happened to him, obviously, and he thought she was only there for the good times that would take off, but she stuck around, and then talks about the snow, and I couldn't believe you kept a smile. And then verse 3, he has a little shout in there at the end, except I don't know much, but don't have much, but what I've got is yours, except, of course, my steel guitar, which I'm pretty sure Ron's playing the steel guitar on here. Ronnie Woods is one of the best steel, or most well-known steel guitar guys outside of the country music genre, and it sure sounds like a pedal steel on here, but it's not. There's not one officially attributed in the official musician notes on here, but it's got to be Ronnie playing a steel guitar on here, and then the mandolin is obviously a huge part on here, whether it's Ray Jackson or whoever it is. Verse 4, I recall the night we knelt and prayed, noticing your face was thin and pale. I found it hard to hide my tears. I felt ashamed. I felt I'd let you down, and other people think that's why he was sick and felt he had left her alone. But no mandolin wind couldn't change a thing, And then the outro at the end, he's just like, yes, indeed, and I love you, and I love you. Lordy, I love you. Lord, I love you. That is a great song, man. I like I said, I've listened to this album once. I don't remember it. That song's great. Now we go to parentheses, I Know I'm Losing You. 1966 hit single recorded by the Temptations for Motown label, produced by the great Norman Whitfield. Jackson 5 also recorded on their debut album. Rod's was released as a single, reaching 24 in the U.S., and it was credited. This was the one song that's credited as Rod Stewart and the Faces. I wonder if the Faces were like, at least we're getting credit. And they're like, wait a minute, it's not just the face. Rod Stewart and the Faces. This might be a little sign of things to come. I Know I'm Losing You. I said it during the reaction. Like, this is, you just hear Faces all over this, right? They kind of just turned it into their own jam. I mean, you got Ronnie on guitar and bass, or you got Ron Wood on guitar, Ronnie Wayne on bass, Ronnie Wayne on backing. Kenny Jones has stepped in on the drums. Ian, of course, is on the piano. And they just turn it into a jam, right? You can't even tell it's a Temptation song. It sounds like a Faces song. And like songs written in 1966 for Motown artists, the lyrics are pretty simplistic, not in a bad way, very catchy way, but it starts out with the chorus, your love is fading, can you feel your love fading, woman is fading away from me, and then the verse just plays out. It's one long verse, and it goes back to a chorus, an interlude, and an outro. That was kind of the way a lot of Motown songs were written back then, very formulaic, in a good way. Once again, I'm not downplaying the way they wrote their songs. You know, it's just basically this girl is going away. He kind of thinks she's hooking up with another guy, but either way, he's thinking she's grown cold. But I don't think he really has any evidence of this. I think he's creating this in his mind, so he may be right, he may not. But you know how it is. Sometimes you get it in your mind that something is a certain way, and then your mind just goes ahead and plays that out and builds the case. So I think that might be what's going on here. But a nice jam. Kind of seems a little out of place on this album. I mean, not in a bad way. I guess it's a nice little breakup here, but yeah, it's not like they just decided, you know what, we've been here jamming. Let's go ahead and really turn one of these into our own. Now we're to the last track. You see it below. Finda in parentheses. A Reason to Believe. Written and first recorded by American folk singer Tim Hardin back in 1965. Since been recorded by artists including the Carpenters in 1970. And then Rod went ahead and did this in 71. And he did it in 1993, and that's the version that I'm familiar with. As mentioned earlier, it was the A-side of Maggie May, remember? But then somewhere along the line, they flipped it over, and Maggie May became the hit. But this still went to 62 in the U.S. That live version released in 1993 on the album Unplugged and Seated, released as a second single from that album, reached 19 in the U.S., 3 in Canada. So if you put those two versions together, this one and the one released in 1993, they logged a total of 41 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100 in America, more than any other Rod Stewart song. Let's finish this thing out. Reason to Believe, yes, that last chorus, that extended chorus is what I wanted, because the only thing I just became distracting to me was the organ was just fired on all cylinders by Ian. Nothing against Ian, but that organ went away on that last extended chorus where it just started with Rod's voice and only his voice, and you realize how powerful and how good his voice is. And then we get a little piano brought in by Pete and a little violin and a little instrumentation built in there, but not so strong. But man, that organ was distracting. But I digress. The song itself, this girl is messing him over. He knows it, but he still wants to stay with her. And he knows if he just listens to her long enough, he'll find a reason to believe that this thing is going to work out. I mean, I knew the song, I just didn't know this arrangement of it. And like I said, the organ had me going, man, this is not going to turn out to be a fave. But the last chorus and that extended outro may have saved it, but that's going to segue nicely into you finding out, because we're going to go to my favorite tracks. Interesting album in the fact that, you know, we have songs written by Rod, we have covers. Obviously, this song was a cover of Tim Hardin, but Tim wasn't real well known. We actually do have a battle of his up on the channel, but he wasn't real well known, especially nowadays. But I mean, you have the Temptations where the Faces are actually credited with him, and you know, it kind of just becomes a Faces song. And then of course you had a cover of Elvis Presley's first hit along with Amazing Grace in here. So a lot of things going on in this album. It's either 10 songs or 8 songs as it is on Spotify, however you want to view it. But my favorite tracks, honorable mention first, Seems Like a Long Time, really did enjoy that, the second track. And is Reason to Believe going to be an honorable mention or a fave? I don't know. I guess I'm going to make it an honorable mention. Is that crazy? Maybe that's crazy. I'm going to make it an honorable mention. Faves, the title track, Every Picture Tells a Story. Of course, Maggie May and Mandolin Wind. Just a really fantastic album. Rod's first several solo albums are very well critically acclaimed. This man has made a lot of albums. We're going to go to my overall album score. For me, it's going to be an 8.5. I think it's incredibly consistent, right? There's no bad track on here. Some of them are just okay for me. Most of them are pretty good, and several of them are borderline really good / great. So appreciate Rich bringing this to me. Always brings me fire, man. Always brings me these classics. Check out Rich's YouTube channel. I'll link it below. If you like this channel, you're going to like his stuff. Music, movies, got some sports thrown in there, all kinds of stuff. Knows a ton about music and movies though. So go check that out. If you want to be a patron and help us as Rich does, it is truly the patrons that keep this thing going. We put up videos every single day, sometimes multiple videos a day. Check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen that's about to hit. Until next time, guys, I will see you.